Welcome everybody to another episode of Creepiest Things Ever. My name's Chocolate Cat, and I'm doing a Halloween special for this episode. This time's not going to be SCPs, but instead Creepypastas. One of them in particular you can only find in another episode, which I will be uploading probably after this one. From the picture, as you can see, it relates to the first creepypasta I'll be talking about. The person to the left is not part of the story. The person to the right, into the picture, is not the picture shown in the creepypasta. But yes, for those that thought it was a mouse, it's not. It actually is a bear. A teddy bear. More will be explained in the creepypasta I will be saying. But let's just start. That's me, by the way. Yeah, that's right. Not the place that I just pointed the arrow to, though. Ignore that. Ignore that part. So, the name of this is called Teddy. This story creeped the frick out of me. So, let's get started. My sister had a teddy bear. A scary teddy bear. I do not know why, but it creeped me out. It was just so disturbing to me. The thing had eyes that looked so real. It was as if it was made from a real bear. Its face was just blank and unsettling. I first started to get weird feelings about the bear when my sister first got it. She was only a baby at the time. I was about 4. We had a dog, you see, and he had a habit of eating things, so my mother always had to put it up on a small cabinet in the corner of the hallway upstairs. Every time I went up those stairs, I saw that creepy bear suddenly glare around the corner at me, as if it was watching me. This wasn't the weird part. It started to get really weird about 5 years later, at the age of 6 to 7. My sister had lost interest in the bear, so my mother just threw it in the old toy cupboard. The only problem was that the cupboard was in my room. When I was 9, old enough to stay on my own and go to bed without any assistance, I would get into my bed every night and turn my lamp off. This is when it got scary. So I was getting some sleep. I suddenly remembered Mom putting that teddy in the cupboard. I slowly turned to look over across my room to see it through the glass. My heart suddenly stopped as I thought about the horrors the plush had caused me, but at the age of 9, I wanted to grow up and lose my fears. So I just shook it off and put my head on the pillow. When I got up to pull my sheets on a bit further, I noticed something that would scar me for life. There sat at the end of my bedroom, the teddy. My heart started beating normally again. I sat there staring at it for about a minute. Ooh, I needed to yawn. I closed my eyes. I opened them to see the teddy sitting closer to my bed. At this point, I was really frickin' freaked out. I started to move back to the wall and looked around to see if there was any sign that anyone had come in. When I looked back to see the teddy at the end of my bed, I was so startled that I almost fainted from fear. When I blinked, it had gone. I looked around to my relief. I saw no sign of it. I sat my head back down on my pillow, hoping for some sleep. Then I opened my eyes. It was above my head, staring straight down. I screamed as it lunged down at me. I will never see the bear the same way again. A few years later, after years of horror, I burned it. I sat in enjoyment as the bear was turned to smoking ashes in my fireplace. I've lived my teenage life through adolescence. The only thing I can remember that was in any way similar to my bad experience was when I watched Transpotting. That fucking baby scene shocked me so badly, but other than that, all was well. When I turned 19, I was about to move into my new home. I had been given the keys to the house and was ready to set up my furniture. After hours of carrying, I carried the final box from the removal truck into the front door and shut the door behind me. I turned to go into the kitchen and put it on the table. I opened it to see a cabinet. I took it out, walked into my new living room, and placed it in the corner, stared at it, and thought to myself, I don't remember packing this cabinet. I didn't really care that much as I had moved into my new house. I walked back into the kitchen to grab my television and brought it into the living room. When I saw it, the teddy, it just sat there, staring at me. That's the end of the creepypasta. Yeah. I used to be scared of stuffed animals too. Like I'd always have like a stupid like rabbit stuffed doll in my room. Like always like on top of my bookshelf. It's like right in front of me for my bed. And like every time I stare at it, I just like imagine like it blinking or something. Like it just freaked the frick out of me. And then one day my mom puts it on the bed and I don't even know it. When I go to bed, I wake up in the middle of the night. I had nightmares. Like a normal 6-year-old would have. And then I see it in my bed. What the heck? I was surprised it didn't kill me. Either way, that was the end of that creepypasta. The next one is the Russian sleep experiment. I don't know what this one's really about at all. But I think I can try and draw a picture of what it looks like or something. Like, it's about, like, Russians, they do some kind of weird test from the name itself. One of my friends told me about it, so I don't know much about it still. But I'd imagine they'd look like this. Like, probably people. If it's an experiment, they probably are people. But they're, like, all deformed and stuff. And stuff like that. That poker face. Maybe they're like bleeding and stuff. I don't know. That's my depiction of whatever the heck the story's about. So, let's start it now. Might as well. Russian researchers in the late 1940s kept 5 people awake for 15 days using an experimental gas-based simulant. They were kept in a sealed environment to carefully monitor their oxygen intake so the gas didn't kill them, since it was toxic in high concentrations. This was before closed-circuit cameras, so they only had microphones and 5-inch thick glass porthole-sized windows in the chamber to monitor them. The chamber was stocked with books, cots to sleep on, but no bedding, running water, toilet, and enough dried food to last all 5 for over a month. Yuck. The test subjects were political prisoners deemed enemies of the state during World War II. Everything was fine for the first 5 days. The subjects hardly complained at having been promised that they would be freed, but they submitted to the test and did not sleep for 30 days. Their conversations and activities were monitored, and it was noted that they continued to talk about increasingly traumatic incidents in their past, and the general tone of their conversations took on a darker aspect after the 4-day mark. After 5 days, they started to complain about the circumstances and events that led them to where they were. They started to demonstrate severe paranoia. They started talking to each other and began alternately whispering into the microphones, and one-way mirrored portholes. Although they all seemed to think they would win the trust of the experimenters by turning over their comrades, the other subjects in captivity with them. At first, the researchers suspected this was an effect of the gas itself, but After 9 days, the first of them started screaming. He ran the length of the chamber, repeatedly yelling at the top of his lungs for 3 hours straight. He continued attempting to scream, but was only able to produce occasional squeaks. The researchers postulated that he had physically torn his vocal cords. The most surprising thing about this behavior is how the other captives reacted to it, or rather didn't react to it. They continued whispering to the microphones until the second of the captives started to scream. The two non-screaming captives took the books apart, smearing page after page with their own feces, and pasted them calmly over the glass portholes. The screaming promptly stopped. So did the whispering to the microphones. After 3 more days passed, the researchers checked the microphones hourly to make sure they were working. Since they thought it was impossible, that no sound could be coming with 5 people inside. The oxygen consumption in the chamber indicated that all 5 must still be alive. In fact, it was the amount of oxygen 5 people would consume at a very high level of strenuous exercise. On the morning of the 14th day, the researchers did something they hoped they would not do to get a reaction from the captives. They used the intercom inside the chamber, hoping to provoke any response from the captives they were afraid were eating either dead or vegetables. What? Oh, okay. They announced, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you immediate freedom." To their surprise, they heard a single phrase in a calm voice response: "We no longer want to be freed." Debate broke out among the researchers and the military forces funding this research. Unable to provoke any more response using the intercom, it was finally decided to open the chamber at midnight on the 15th day. The chamber was flushed of the stimulant gas and filled with fresh air, and immediately voices from the microphones began to object. 3 different voices began begging, as if pleading for the life of loved ones, to turn the gas back on. The chamber was opened and soldiers sent in to receive the test subjects. They began to scream louder than ever, and so did the soldiers when they saw what it was inside. 4 of the 5 subjects were still alive, although no one could rightly call the state that any of them were in life. The food rations past day 5 had not been so much as touched. There were chunks of meat from the dead test subjects' thighs and chests dumped in the drain. All 4 surviving test subjects also had large portions of muscle and skin torn away from their bodies. Closer examination of the position and angles of the wounds indicated that most, if not all, were self-inflicted. Most of the soldiers were Russian special operatives at the facility, but still many refused to return to the chamber to remove the test subjects. They continued to scream to be left in the chamber and alternately begged and demanded that the gas be turned back on, lest they fall asleep. To everyone's surprise, the test subjects put up a fierce fight in the process of being removed from the chamber. 1 of the Russian soldiers died from his throat being ripped off. Another 5 lost their lives if you count 1 that committed suicide in the weeks following the incident. The most injured of the 3 was taken to the only surgical operating room that the facility had. In the process of preparing the subject to have his organs placed back within his body, it was found that he was effectively immune to the sedative they had given him to prepare for the surgery. He fought furiously against his restraints when the anesthetic gas was brought out to him under, and then instant his eyelids fluttered and closed. His heart stopped. He was dead. The second survivor had been the first of the group of 5 to start screaming. His vocal cords were the one that was destroyed, making it impossible for him to talk. But when he was given the anesthetic gas, his head shook violently in disapproval. He shook his head yes, when someone suggested reluctantly they try the surgery without anesthetic, and did not react for an entire 6-hour procedure. The surgeon presided stately stated repeatedly that it should be medically possible for the patient to still be alive. One terrified nurse assisting the surgery stated that she had seen the patient's mouth curl into a smile several times whenever his eyes met hers. All 3 subjects' restraints were reinforced and they were placed back into the chamber, awaiting their determination as to what should be done with them. But a commanding officer, ex-KGB, instead saw potential and wanted to see what would happen if they were put back on the gas. The researchers strongly objected, but were overruled. He turned on the gas and got everything ready again. And to everyone's surprise, all 3 stopped struggling the moment it was let slip that they were going back on the gas. It was obvious at this point all 3 were putting up a great struggle to stay awake. One of the subjects that could speak was humming loudly and continuously. The mute subject was straining his legs. It appeared that they were having a hard time. Having been the first, the remaining subject was holding his head off his pillow and blinking rapidly. Having been the first to be wired for EEG, most of the researchers were monitoring his brain waves in surprise. They were normal most of the time, but sometimes flatlined inexplicably. It looked as if he was repeatedly suffering brain death before returning to normal. The only remaining subject that could speak started screaming to be sealed in now. His brain waves showed the same flat lines as one who had just died from falling asleep. So the commander gave the order to seal the chamber with both subjects inside, as well as 3 researchers. One of the named 3 immediately drew his gun and shot the commander point blank in the eyes. They turned the gun on the mute subject and blew his brains out as well. He pointed his gun at the remaining subject, still restrained to a bed, as the remaining members of the medical and research team fled the room. "I won't be locked in here with these things, not with you!" He screamed at the man strapped to the table. "What are you? I must know!" The subject smiled. "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. You're the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be free at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate in silence and paralyze when you go to the nocturnal heaven where we cannot tread." The researcher paused, then aimed at the subject's heart and fired. The EEG flatlined as the subject weakly choked out, "So nearly free." That's the end. Well, the guy here had nothing to do with the story, however. I was totally wrong with what they looked like. What it looked like, I don't want to even draw a picture. Won't call that scary or creepy, but more something that actually could happen. It's kind of depicting what we really are on the inside. I'm guessing the gas kind of made them go insane or something, and made their brain, just whack out. Kind of sound like they were taking speed from that gas or something, because they were sure having a hell of a time in there. But that's pretty much all. If you'd like to watch the Secret Pasta episode, I'll put it in a separate video. But this was a Halloween special made by me. And see you guys in the next video.